Hello boys and girls, in this episode we'll be learning about main and subordinate clauses. Objectives. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to distinguish between main and subordinate clauses, identify subordinating conjunctions in sentences, and complete sentences by adding the appropriate subordinate or main clause. In the last lesson, we looked at conjunctions. Do you remember what subordinating conjunctions are or what role they play in a sentence? Here is a quick reminder. Subordinating conjunctions are conjunctions that join dependent and independent clauses. Here are some examples. Since, because, until, when, while, whereas, unless, if, before, although, even though, as long as. You may be wondering why the topic for this lesson says main and subordinate clauses, yet the reminder is talking about independent and dependent clauses. That's unreasonable. These terms are referring to the same thing and are used interchangeably. Let's continue the lesson to find out what they mean. So let's go. It says, observe the sentence strips below. Some of them are expressing complete thoughts and make sense on their own. Color these strips yellow. The others do not make sense and will need additional information to make them complete. Color these strips blue. As soon as I get to the front. Well, that doesn't make sense on its own. Okay. So that one should be blue. Okay, you need more information. As soon as you get to the front, what? Next one. She will visit the library and complete her project. That stands on its own. They will not be allowed to go in unless they are early. Okay. All right. Although he was sick, that clearly doesn't stand on its own. Need more information. The fan is on because the room is hot. That makes complete sense. Now that you are here. Now that you are here, what? All right. Let's explain. A clause is a group of words that contain a subject and a verb and makes up a sentence or part of a sentence. Two main types of clauses in English are main clause and subordinate clause. A main clause is a clause that expresses a complete thought and makes sense on its own. A main clause also refers to an independent clause. On the other hand, a subordinate clause does not express a complete thought and does not make sense on its own. It depends on other information or a main clause to help make sense as a sentence. Subordinate clauses are also called dependent clauses. A subordinate clause also starts with a subordinating conjunction. Look back at the sentence strips above. Which colors represent the main clause? Yellow. Which color represents the subordinate clause? That would have been blue. Let's just go back to make sure. It says some of them express complete thoughts. Those would be the yellow, and then those that need additional information, blue. Here we have a little box here, I guess a fact box if you want to call it that, from one of our previous lessons on text features. Clause, a group of words that contain a subject and a verb. Independent clause makes sense on its own as a sentence. For example, I went to school. So we have the subject and we have a predicate and it stands on its own. It makes sense by itself. Dependent clause doesn't make sense on its own as a sentence. Although I wasn't feeling well, I went to school. So, although I, that would be dependent. Okay? All right, let's continue. Try this activity with a friend or classmate. Ask your teacher for a dice. Each friend has 6 chances to roll the dice alternately. When friend A rolls the dice, friend B formulates a sentence verbally or written. The sentence must have a subordinating clause. Friend A should then try to identify the subordinating conjunction and subordinate clause in the sentence. If he or she identifies both subordinating conjunction and clause correctly, double the points rolled on the dice. So here we have friend A, friend B. This is your first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth try, and then the total. It says if he or she identifies one of them correctly, then the points are not doubled. If he or she does not identify either of them, he or she does not get the point. Record the points in the table below, and friend B gets his turn to roll the dice and identify the subordinate conjunction and clause in friend A's sentence. Continue to take turns until both of you have gotten 6 chances to roll the dice, or best of 6. The person with the most points at the end of the game wins. Here we go. Choose one of the sections below to complete it on your own. A. Read each clause carefully. Okay, so this is separate. Read each clause carefully. Write M if it is a main clause, or S if it is a subordinate clause. So this is different from this one. Let's go. If she is driving, if she's driving what? We need some more information. Okay, so that must be S there. It's not a main clause. It's a subordinate clause. I will not go unless my mother says so. That makes sense on its own. So M for main. When I get to high school, so what? You need some more. When you get to high school, I'm going to be the best footballer because I've been practicing every day, or I'm the best footballer at my school now, something. You need more. 4. Although it is a holiday, we still had to go to school. You still need some more. All right. So again, S for this one. Until you reach 18 years old, you don't have the right to vote. Something like that. You need some more. Since you passed your exams, we will buy a gift. That could work on its own. So M for main clause. So in this episode, we were looking at main and subordinate clauses, right? So if at the end of this lesson, you're able to tell the difference between the main clause and the subordinate clause, if you're able to identify some of the subordinating conjunctions in a sentence, and then complete sentences using the appropriate subordinate clauses, then we'd have had a successful lesson. Remember these: since, because, until, when, while, whereas, unless, if, before, although, even though, as long as. Those are some examples of our subordinating conjunctions. Okay, so they go before the subordinate clause. All right, guys, take care. We'll see you in the next episode. So complete your activities and post so we can look at that.